let's start. First checking we are live or not. So we are live now. I'm checking. Okay, we are live now. So let's start our chapter. So we already discussed these topics like what's the meaning of API design, and we are working on this series. We are already covered these topics, and now we are discussing about the most important topic and the most important part of our series, which is known as the cookies. So what do we mean by this term cookies, and why we need this cookies? So let's first discuss about why we need this cookie. So in next slide, like we can see that http protocol http protocol is stateless. Can you please explain this with one example? So first we need to understand like what do you mean by this term on stateless or stateful. So let's understand first this. So yes, http we already know like what do you mean by http is stateless, meaning that each request from a client browser to a server is independent and does not retain any information about previous request. Like stateless means the two requests is independent, like they work independently, they does not interfere with the work of each other. So the next example is we are showing this example a scenario logging into a website, like a website, and you open a login page and enter your username and password. Your browser sent an http request to the server for authentication, and the server verifies your credential and responds with a message, the success message. Okay, like I can write like this is pen. So let's start. We have a client, we have a server. So basically they send request, they response, they send request and another request and another response. So these response and request are independent of each other. This is the meaning of stateless, and this is the main problem I think for http. So this is a scenario. So when a login page enter use username and password, then the server for authentication and then verify with the success message. Now if http were stateful, what do you mean? The server would remember you after this request and you would not need to authenticate again. However, since http is stateless, if you refresh the page or navigate to a different section of the site, server forgets your login status. That means if you refresh that page, then they show you again that page. Means you need to re-verify to yourself, like I am that person. So problem due to statelessness. So these are some problem, and solution of this problem is basically we already know cookies. So we use cookies, session, tokens. We already know about JWT, that means JSON Web Token, to store user authentication data and maintain the session across multiple requests. Okay, so this is basically the concept of stateless and stateful. So the solution of this problem is cookies. So we are discussing our first topic, that means what is cookies, what is the types of cookies, and how we can declare a cookie, and what's the main functionality of this term which is known as cookies. So in next slide, okay, next slide we can see, sorry, where is our pointer? Okay, this is our pointer. So in next slide we can see this is a browser, and in this is a server. So basically this is browser, that means client side, and this is server side. So this browser send sign in request to server. I need to change this pen. Okay, I'm choosing this laser point. So and first this browser send a request, send sign in request to the server, and then this server gives a response with a cookie which have session ID back to browser, and these cookies store inside browser. So this cookie store in this browser, and whenever whenever this browser again send a request, then this session ID with the cookie send back to the server, and after that this server respond back with a new session ID and new cookies. So this is the basic functionality of these cookies, like they manage the session. So in our next slide, the main purposes of cookies we can understand, like cookies are mainly used for three purposes. The first is session management, that is user sign in status, shopping cart contents, game scores, or any other user session related details that the server needs to remember. Like I so let's start with the example, the basic example. Like this is a login page, and this is a server. So this send a request, and the server send back and authenticate. So after that, this login page go to a shopping site, and if they refresh it, then this session ID and cookies send back to the server, and server say like you are on that page at that time, so we are sending you some additional details and send back to that page again, not to the login page. So if we are not using this cookie concept, then they redirect again to our login page. So this is the main functionality and main functionality of this topic, which is known as cookies. So the first is session management, and the next one is personalization, like user preferences such as display language and UI theme. Like cookies is used to store some data. Like what type of data they store some personalization data for better recommendation, user information for better understanding of that user, and this is for increase personal experience. Okay, these cookies store some basically data, and these cookies also helps us for this purpose, that is tracking, recording, and analyzing user behavior. Okay, so these are the some functionality of this concept which is known as cookies. So our next slide is how they store data storage and let me talk about this. So instead of this, we are explaining this concept in Excalibur. So let's start. So I'm making uh so okay. So this is client. Sorry. This is client and this is server. So first, client send a request. Okay, client send a request. Like client send a request. I need to select this. Okay, client send a request, and then the server gives a response. So server gives a response with cookies, and these cookies store inside client browser. So these cookies store inside client browser and collect some information and collect some information which helps which helps server to understand the what type of that client is, and storing some data like for personalization, for tracking purpose, and for session management. So this is the basics of cookies, and now we are going to next slide. So so we already so we are on this slide, which is known as data storage. We already talk about this concept, like the cookies store some data. In the early days of the web, when there was no other option, cookies were used for general client-side data storage purpose. Modern storage API are now recommended. For example, when this web storage API, local storage, and session storage, and IndexedDB. So these are some basics. They are designed with storage in mind. Okay, never send data to the. So let us suppose this is a person and they are storing some data, storing some data in mind. So this is also a cookie concept, like I am and what's in my mind is going. So they are designed with storage in mind, never send data to the server, and don't come with other drawbacks of using cookies for storage. Browsers are generally limited to a maximum number of cookies per domain. Okay, so this based on varies by browser, generally in the 100, and a maximum size per cookie usually 4 KB. So storage API can store large amount of data. Cookies are sent with every request, so they can worsen performance. For example, on slow mobile data connections, if you have a lot of cookies set. Okay, so these are some drawbacks of cookies. Okay, so these are some drawbacks. What's the drawback? Like maximum number of cookies per domain varies. First, and these cookies can slow down our system because it collects some data, and when user doing some other purpose or work, then they collecting data and slow down our PC, or I can say mobile phone. So the next topic, which is the most important topic of cookies, like how we can set these cookies and how they work. So let's understand some basics of this concept. So like how we can create this, remove this and update these cookies. So after receiving an HTTP request, a server can send one or more set cookie headers with the response each one of will, like we can understand this as we have a server, and I have a postman. We already know about postman, and postman send a get request. So when in an endpoint or any endpoint, if I request a send a get request, then we receive some cookies. Like we have this http 200 okay content type or html, set cookie yummy cookie is equal to chocolate, and set cookie. Okay, so these are response, these are some response, and these are set cookies. Like what type of set cookie is equal to cookie name and cookie value. So this is the basically format of set cookie. So this is all about of creating cookies. So our next topic is removing cookies. So when a new request is made, the browser usually sends previously stored cookies for the current domain back to the server within a cookie. Like we have already a cookie store in our client side, and this is our server side. So I need to send back, so I'm sending these cookies with the request, and these cookies update inside server and then get with response. So so the server respond with cookies, simple as that. Okay, so these are our cookies, and this is our get request, and this is our host. So in the next page we are understanding some type of data, and like permanent cookies and section cookies. You can specify an expiration date or time. That means at what after what time that cookies destroy itself or deleted from our client browser. Because if we store lots of cookies in our browser, then it may slow down this browser, because these cookies used for tracking purpose as well. So you can specify an expiration date or time period after which the cookies should be deleted and no longer sent, depending on the attributes set within the set cookie header. When the cookies are created, they can be either permanent or session cookies. So what do we mean by permanent cookies? Permanent cookies are deleted after the date specified in the expire attribute. Like set cookies this and expires at this time period, or after the period specified in the max age attribute, like this. Session cookies without a max age or expire attribute are deleted when the current session ends. So when that session ends, so after that these cookies will delete it. So this is all about cookies and concept of cookies. So I hope you can understand all the concept that I taught you. So this is end of this session. We meet on the next lecture. Thank you.